Hey guys, Mixed Media Girl here. In this video, I am doing a beautiful resin beach scene with 2 layers of waves. And making beaches with resin is one of my favorite projects. I feel like I could literally do this all day long. So to start off with, I'm using an 11 by 14 inch wood board. This is a cradled wood board. You can get them from Michael's, you can get them from Blick's, you can get them from Amazon, pretty much anywhere. And I did pre-prime this with just some white primer from, I believe, Home Depot. And I primed it kind of in the shape that I wanted for my sand. And you can see kind of the bottom of the board there isn't primed. But what I did put on there is some stone texture spray paint. And that's amazing for making fake sand, basically. You could use real sand if you'd like. You can get that also at Home Depot, Lowe's, etc. It is, I believe, the Rustoleum brand. And you just spray it on there and it gives you this beautiful texture. So I put that on the bottom of the board, and then I don't put any resin on that because I want to leave that sand matte, not glossy. And also, not putting any resin on there helps the waves to stay put instead of flowing into the sand. I'm using Mixed Media Girl Artist Resin. And for the water, I like to typically do a darker blue and a lighter blue. Now here I kind of messed up and the blues were a little too similar, but that's okay. And I used some sky blue polycolor mica powder and some Alumilite ocean blue resin dye. Once I've got my water on there, I go in and make the line for my wave. In between the water and the white for the wave, I put some clear resin to kind of act as a buffer. And then I add my white where I want to put it. And this is Alumilite white resin dye. You don't want to put too much, but I actually feel like I might put not quite enough here. It's a little hard to tell sometimes. But just put maybe about a centimeter or a little bit less of a line, depending on, of course, how big your project is. Once I've got all my resin down, I go in there with the heat gun and I heat up the whole thing. And this kind of starts the blues into mixing together and melding so it looks a little more natural. And then heat right above the white line, and then go ahead and use the heat gun to push that white line up into the blue. Now you can add any of the attachments onto your heat gun to help with this, but I usually just go ahead and use it without those. I've had some bad experiences with the attachments personally. And once you're done with it, you can either leave it like that, or a fun trick I like to do is taking some 91% isopropyl alcohol and spritz it up into the air. And that gives you this awesome look. And breaks up those waves, makes it all nice and foamy. And then I like to take a little bit more white and just clean up my shoreline. Now in this one, I decided to do 2 layers of resin. So I let that first layer cure, and then it came back in and I wanted to add a little more depth to those waves. So remember I said I wanted to have 2 different blues, but the blues ended up being really similar. So I figured I would get a little more depth on this second layer with a slightly darker blue. So pretty much the same thing. I went in there with a darker blue and a lighter blue, same resin dye and everything like that. Now this time though, I'm not going down as far because I want to add a second wave, which would be a couple inches above the first one. I also use this to give my waves a little more character. My first wave was a little too straight for my liking, so this one I made a lot more curved. And it's just the same process. I put my blues down, then a line of clear, and then my line of white underneath that clear. And this time you can see that white's got a little more character there, little not quite as straight, so I liked it. I heat up the whole thing with the heat gun, and this point you can mix the blues as much or as little as you would like, but just make sure you get the whole thing heated. That'll get rid of air bubbles, and also, once again, mix your blues. And then heat just above your white line. Make sure that there's no spaces of the board that aren't covered with resin. where you're going to be working with your waves here, or it won't flow, obviously. So heat above your white line, and then use that heat gun to push that white up as much or as little as you'd like. And then sometimes I like to go back a little bit and kind of feather out some of that white. Try not to go over your waves too much though, because it'll just all get blended with that blue. So try to do just one shot instead of going back and forth over your waves. And I did the same 91% isopropyl alcohol trick on this, where I just shot it up into the air and then went back in with my white. And I wanted to clean up my first shoreline just a little bit more. So I actually added one more line of white there. Now here's how it looks completely dry. I did put one final clear coat over all of the resin. Once I was done, I still left that bottom of the board without any resin on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you all next time.